Hello and welcome back to The Sweet Spot with me, Seb Carmichael-Brown, the Racing Post weekly golf tipping show. We will be reviewing last week's event, the WGC in Mexico, as well as the Puerto Rico Open, alongside previewing this week's events, which we have two fantastic events. We have the Oman Open on the European Tour and one of the most difficult courses this week on the PGA Tour, the Honda Classic. I'll of course be getting our views and tips from resident tipster Steve Palmer, and we have a special guest, my good friend, Mr. Peter Finch. Peter is a content creator, golfing professional, has got a very interesting story for us later maybe about, he played the golf course, Al Mouj, on the Oman Open. Peter, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
We've got to start off talking about this, haven't we?
Listen, I told you what I was wearing, so you went and copied me. It just gets, we've been having this for quite a few years, ladies and gentlemen. It actually gets a little bit depressing after a while. I'm just going to top toe.
Well, we won't actually blame each other. We'll just make sure Steve is wearing the same thing. He did get the memo. We all three of us in the same top. But anyway,
it's a new band, a cappella group that we're starting.
Let's now, the Sweeties. The Sweeties, there we go. I just robbed that off Steve, by the way. Right, but Peter, before we get into checking out what happened at last week's events and how well our tips got on, let's tell the audience who might not know who you are a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
Yeah, so in the nutshell, I make online content around golf, try and make it as entertaining as possible, from coaching videos to travel videos and to everything in between is the best way of describing it. A one-stop shop for your golfing entertainment.
Wow, there you go. What more do you need, guys? Well, we are going to be finding out, Pete, because Pete, I do believe you did play that course last year.
I did.
And here you had a very good back nine.
Tore it apart. If they're not shooting 44 under this year, I'm going to be very upset.
Well, I'll say it for him. Pete shot a 7 under on the back nine on the golf course of this week's Oman Open. Al Mouj, is that
Al Mouj.
Al Mouj is the name of the course. So we'll be seeing if he maybe got a few tips of his own for who might be able to go one better than you, which would be some going, wouldn't it, to be fair?
It would be. You know, my hearty congratulations if anyone can manage it. That's the gauntlet that's thrown down. Maybe that's one of the bets I can
European Tour, come at Pete, 7 under back nine. Let's see what you've got. I really hope someone beats that now.
Guaranteed someone's going to beat me. Come on.
Okay, let's now go and chat to Steve Palmer and see how our tips got on last week. Okay, so last week's events, we had the WGC at Chapultepec and we had the Puerto Rico Open. Let's start with the WGC, Pete. Did you see much of the event? What were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I managed to catch quite a bit of it. I think it's one of those courses which, out of all the events in the year, is one that I have highlighted in my head to actually watch, just because of the different conditions that you get over there. Obviously, if you get the big boys hitting it, you know, Rory, DJ, they're flying it like 360 through the air.
We're not talking about DJ. We're not talking about DJ.
No, we're not.
He's let me down big time. I said last week, DJ is one of my hot tips. I said it's going to take a stairwell like it did at Augusta to stop him. Well, he must have found every escalator in Mexico because he missed the cut. Well, he didn't miss the cut because there was no cut. But he had an absolute shocker.
He would have missed the cut if there was a cut.
He would have missed the cut by a long way. He was right towards the bottom. He had one good low round on Saturday, but he had an absolute shocker. Thankfully, some of my other tips did a lot better. We had top sixes from Tyrrell Hatton, Matsuyama, and Bryson DeChambeau just came up short last week. Probably not a very popular 1 and 2, Pete. Obviously, Patrick Reed got the win.
No, not really. I don't mind DeChambeau, to be fair, because he's just a bit weird, a bit different, and in a cacophony of vanilla tour pros that are out there at the moment, it's actually nice to have someone a little bit different. Patrick Reed, well, you know, maybe
the less said, the better,
not.
Possibly. Patrick Reed,
potentially, but hey, what a lovely performance.
He did play very, very well.
Didn't go in many bunkers, did he?
A lot of the guys were saying it is a shame that he's got this sort of cloud of controversy following him because he's such a fantastic golfer. So yeah, we'll see how his reputation can be maybe helped by this latest victory. But
it's hard to see through the cloud of controversy there. Everyone knows that's a particularly thick cloud.
It's a storm.
It is a storm. It's a gathering storm as well.
Someone whose tips did a little bit more consistently, shall we say. Steve, how did your guys get on at Chapultepec?
Well, yeah, it's a disappointing Sunday for me. I only had 2 selections last week in the Mexico Championship, but they were first and fourth going into the final round, and both top-class operators. Justin Thomas, of course, traditionally a very good closer of tournaments, and Rory McIlroy, obviously capable of still winning from fourth place. So I had extremely high hopes on Sunday, and they finished 5th and 6th. So I was pretty gutted. They both crumbled really badly in the middle of their rounds. And when McIlroy 3-putted the 12th green, it was my race was essentially run in Mexico.
It was a shame. I mean, once again, another very stellar, you have to say, performance from Rory McIlroy. But you've got to say, if he's outside the top 10, you know, he's got to have had a pretty poor week because he hardly lit it up. And he's once again on that leaderboard most of the days last week. So We say it every week, building into Augusta, but he's got to find a way to close another one out. It'd be lovely for him to get another win before Augusta to really get some confidence, but wasn't to be last week. Patrick Reed's a winner. How did things go down in Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico, we had Patrick Rogers. He was in 5th place going into the final round. Winning was never going to be easy, but we had the McIlroy and Rogers each way double. So I was really hoping we are going to get a place double. McIlroy got his 5th place, but Rogers decided to shoot a final round 75. A really pathetic Sunday effort from him. Yeah, I was disgusted with Patrick Rogers on Sunday. And obviously kicking myself for not backing Victor Hovland, a massive Victor Hovland fan. I've been in love with him ever since he finished 12th in the US Open. He finished 12th in the US Open as an amateur. Amazing ball striking performance at Pebble Beach. But I just thought on his Puerto Rico debut last week, the odds were a bit cramped, but they obviously weren't cramped, and I hate myself with a passion.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, but Victor Hovland, speaking about him, he seems to be a very likeable guy. He's somebody that I would recommend. Not all of the golfers are that interesting on social media. There's a few that are. Eddie Pepperell's one that leaps on my mind straight away. But Victor Hovland seems to be just a very happy chap.
Just very down to earth, like just a normal kid who's just loving life. That's the real appeal. He's just got a lovely squishy face.
He's got a lovely smile, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And of course, he will be eligible for Ryder Cup for us going forward.
Absolutely,
so that is a fantastic asset for Team Europe to have.
He's got a fantastic temperament, isn't he, Victor Hovland? You're right. He just looks like he's always happy and smiling. And he had a triple bogey at the 11th hole on Sunday. Had a real chipping nightmare beside the 11th green, and that would have derailed most players. He's a young lad, but he got his composure back and he chipped in for eagle at the 15th hole. And then he holed a long birdie putt at the 18th hole to win by a shot. So, I'm a huge Victor Hovland fan. I think it could go right to the top. His winning putt on Sunday, it was from about 25 feet, just rattled it in, bold as brass. I'm excited about Victor Hovland. Yeah, you're right. He's going to be a Ryder Cup star for years to come.
And he's going to be in the field this week at the Honda Classic, notoriously one of the hardest stops, PGA National, on the one of the hardest rated golf courses on the tour. Steve, tell us a bit more about that course.
Yeah, the champion course at PGA National, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. A lot of the top players live in this area, actually. Brooks Koepka and Ricky Fowler both playing this week. They live nearby. 7,125 yards, past 70, and a really tough gig. It's been the venue since 2007 and always provides a stiff challenge. 6 under par or worse has topped the leaderboard 3 times in this event. Anyone who gets to double digits under par has a great chance of winning. And it's going to be quite cool by Florida standards this week. Ball's not going to go so far. Plenty of breeze. I'm looking for grinders. It's a week to churn out greens and regulation.
Is that one of those golf courses where you've got that nice little sounding name of a stretch of holes towards the final close, I should say, the Bear Trap? I mean, I would not fancy playing any of those holes. I'd love to go and play them. I wouldn't fancy playing them with the sort of pressure and money on the line these guys have got.
There are stretch of holes which you like to watch other players play,
true.
But you're not watching it expecting birdies. You're watching it expecting catastrophe. And that's what makes it good to watch. And there's a few places like that on tour. Obviously, Amen Corner, famous. You think of kind of the Bear Pit, obviously the Phoenix. Those are the stretches, those are the holes you want to watch because exciting things happen. It's the same with the Bear Trap, but you're watching it for chaos.
Yeah, and they could well be absolute chaos. So, Steve, who is going to be best skilled and equipped to deal with that chaos? Who are you tipping this week for the Honda Classic?
Number 1 selection in the Honda Classic is Tommy Fleetwood. I think this is the week that Tommy Fleetwood wins his first PGA Tour title. PGA National rewards tee to green consistency. As you say, loads of trouble, loads of water. It's all about keeping your scorecard clean, not making many long game errors. And Fleetwood is one of the most solid operators on the planet now. He's probably a tad rusty last week in Mexico. That was his first PGA Tour spin of the year. But he shot 4 under par rounds, finished 18th. Solid effort. He's played the Honda once before. And he finished 4th in 2018. He was beaten by only 2 shots, and conditions were similar that year to what he'll face this week. He loves tough assignments, Tommy Fleetwood. US Open runner-up in 2018, and 2 starts in Florida last year yielded 3rd place at Bay Hill and 5th place at Sawgrass. So, I think we found the perfect event for Fleetwood to get off the mark on the US Tour.
Interesting. Pete, give us one of your top choices for this week at the Honda.
One of them was going to be Tommy, and
okay, so you've got a backing up there, Steve.
I can't add anything else that Steve's just on about because he's perfectly summed it up there. Other player that I had was Louis Oosthuizen, who's he's not a kind of winner on the PGA Tour, but for an each way kind of bet. I mean, he is so consistent. He's very straight, and he's the type of temperament that he's capable of actually dealing with the ups and downs which are going to come on that course. You know, there's no way you're not going to be going through rounds there without messing up at least once, just because it is so tough. So he's the type of player who I imagine in that type of environment would play really, really well. I'm not saying he's going to win, but he'll definitely be up there.
I think he's had a reasonable finish there before. I think he's been top 20-ish in the past there, Oosthuizen. Obviously a big-time player for a big-time golf course. Right, here you go, guys. I've got a couple for you I'll give you now. I'm going to start with Billy Horschel. Okay, nice bit of value there from that. He's a local boy. He's playing in his home state. He's got 3 top 16s here in the last 4 years, and 2 of those are inside the top 10. He's straight off the back of back-to-back top 10s at the Waste Management and the WGC last week. Played very well. He's got that interesting putting setup, hasn't he? He walks into his putts with 1 foot behind the other and sort of scuttles towards the ball.
In, yeah.
But he's made some fantastic putts at the moment. Horschel also 3rd last week in strokes gained tee to green, striking the ball phenomenally well right now, which will be very important at a course like PGA National. And he's 16th on tour this season in strokes gained putting. On my second one, before we come back to you, Steve, is going to be Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler is the all-time tournament earnings leader at this event. He won it in 2017, runner-up last year. He's also got 2 top 10s so far out of 4 starts this year. For me, Ricky Fowler's a guy that should win more, and I think possibly he's about to start winning more. He started using that interesting ball, the Pix ball, which is very synonymous with his colour orange. I am a massive Ricky Fowler fan, Pete.
Yeah, I think that statement that you just made, you know, he looks like he's about to start winning loads. He's been looking like he's about to start winning loads for about, that's going on like 10 years now. So I like Ricky Fowler. I think he's good. I think he's a great player. Has he got that extra bit to become a prolific winner? I'm just not sure. I think he would have shown it by now. You can never write him off because obviously he's a great ball striker and he's an absolutely incredible putter. And you can never write off anyone who puts like he can. But I'm not sure.
Steve, who else have you got for the Honda?
Just got 2 against the field. The only player I can see beating Fleetwood this week is the US Open champion, Gary Woodland. I think he understandably had a spell of adjustment after becoming a major champion. He's spoken about this. He said he found all the extra attention, the added commitment, a real challenge, less time to practice, etc. And he also said that the short game improvements that he made to win that US Open, he got obsessed with short game. He just spent all his time trying to take it to an even greater level, and he neglected the part of the game which had made him a PGA Tour superstar, which was really consistent ball striking. But over the last 4 months or so, he's got the ball striking back. His swing's in good order. And last week he finished 12th in the Mexico Championship, and that is really encouraging form because his record there was poor. He's not played that track well. He did last week. He goes to a more suitable venue this week. His Honda record is really solid. He's never missed a cut there. He finished 6th and 2nd at PGA National. He's lived in Florida for 4 years now. Extremely comfortable at the venue. So, yeah, I see Fleetwood and Woodland battling out on Sunday for the title.
I think it's very interesting looking at them moving towards the Florida swing because there is such a big difference in the greens they putt on from the West Coast swing. Going from Poa Ana, where there's not many of them that got that many nice things to say about that type of green, over to Bermuda now, which is a lot more affable. You could see potentially stats like strokes gained putting not mean as much right now and look more about people that are hitting greens, proximity to the flag, because it's a completely different surface they're putting on now. I've got a little outsider for us here. It's not too long, but we're looking at the weather forecast specifically. The wind could blow here on a very tough golf course. Someone who played very well here last year, had a final round 63 last year to give himself a tied for 4th place. He's got 2 top 10s this season. Wind player, Steve, Mr. Ryan Palmer is available at 66 to 1. I think there's a little bit of value there for Ryan.
Yeah, he's playing great, isn't he? I mean, it's always the problem with Ryan Palmer is that he's a bit flaky in contention. His most recent win came when he had John Rahm beside him in the Zurich Classic Pairs event. But Palmer on his own, I never really trust him at the business end. You know, he's obviously a family member. He's my Uncle Ryan. But I'd worry about Palmer at the business end. But there's plenty of places out there, plenty of each way money that he could sneak into.
Absolutely. Right, okay, I think it's now time we head over to Middle East again and start looking at the field for this week's Oman Open. Okay, so to Al Mouj for the Oman Open on the European Tour. Pretty strong field. Pete, what are you thinking? Anyone for us over here?
I'm kind of thinking Gavin Green on this one. I mean, he's been playing really well, and it's the type of course which, if it's a similar setup to what it was last year, is going to suit him. So it's not massively long off the back with the conditions being warm. It does get a little bit windy, but with his distance and his power, because the rough was growing up a little bit last year. So if you were a little bit wayward off the tee, you have to have the strength to actually whip it out of there. And I think he's got that potential as well. The greens and the surrounds are perfect, so there's absolutely no excuse to not put and score well there, but you've just got to hit the fairways, got to hit the greens.
I mean, we talked about it earlier with a bit of messing around, but Pete, you did play there last year, and you said a lot of nice things about the golf course. The greens were one of the best you've played
Amazing.
on.
Yeah.
Very nice clubhouse, I think you said as well.
Just the whole, on the face of it, it shouldn't work because the course is sandwiched on like a really thin stretch of land between the ocean and the airport. And you're kind of looking at it thinking, oh, I'm not sure about this. But when you actually get there, like the design and the way it was prepared last year with the runoff areas and the greens, it just made a really enjoyable course. And it's something when you actually spoke to the tour pros. When you speak to tour pros, some of the courses they go, there's a bit of a false impression that all the courses they play are amazing courses. They're actually sometimes not. Like they don't enjoy them all. There's not a single pro that I spoke to who does not love this golf course. So that's got to say something.
I did see Eddie Pepperell say something to that note on Twitter. He talked about him on social media. He's one where you normally get a lot of honesty from him.
Yeah.
And he did say, it's very different for him on Twitter to say something positive,
Yep.
but he had very positive things to say about the golf course over there. Interestingly, Steve, the last 2 years there, this is the third time the event's been held at this golf course. Very different scores over the last two winning scores. I think Hughes Luton, the inaugural year there, was I think 16 or 17 under. Last year's winner, I think only 6 or 7 under, I think it was. So contrasting, you'd maybe think that looking at course form could be slightly dangerous here, or depending on what the forecast is, where I think is probably somewhere in the middle for this week. What are your thoughts for this week?
Yeah, that was down to weather conditions. It was calm in the first inaugural edition, and then last year much windier and much tougher. I mean, it was carnage coming down the stretch last year. I mean, I was on Clements all day, and he three-putted the last hole. Everyone was going backwards. Zanotti had a great chance and blew it. So all down to the weather. And this week it's not expected to blow. So I think it's going to be more like 2017 than 2018. And you've also got 5 years of Challenge Tour form to factor in. They played Challenge Tour event there 5 years in a row before the European Tour moved there. So plenty to get stuck into. But unfortunately, I cannot resist the favourite here, Thomas Pieters. I regular Racing Post readers will know I have a love-hate relationship with Thomas Pieters. I think he's got so much ability. I don't think he's done himself justice in his career so far. He's a really frustrating player to follow. He often follows an amazing round with an absolute shocker. He did that in the Dubai Desert Classic recently, 67, 77 when we were on him. But I'm keeping the faith in Thomas Pieters. I'm keeping the faith. He's a 4-time European Tour winner at the age of 28. It's not that bad. He top scored in he's top scored in a Ryder Cup. He's finished 4th in a Masters. Class act, best ball striker in this field, in my opinion. If he holds a few putts, I think Pieters is going to be very hard to beat. He was 3rd in the Saudi International last time out. He was 6th in his only previous Oman Open start. And he's desperately motivated because he's 68th in the world rankings at the moment. He's not in the Masters. He knows if he gets in the Masters, he can win the Masters. He's good enough to win the Masters. He's got to get in that top 50 week before the Masters.
Steve, if you ever stop tipping, I think you should go into sales, because after watching you this close up, I just can't see how anyone you tip is not going to win. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to win. I've got to get the house on him. Incredible stuff.
He should have been here in 2018 because that was pretty much the case. Everything did win, but last year it was the opposite. But,
we're on pretty good form this year so far. We've got at least a place every single week, so we need to make sure that form continues. I think you've got a few for us over in Oman, haven't you? Who's your number 2 on the list while we're here?
The next best is Adrianus. He's a Spaniard, but he moved to Dubai at the start of this year. So this is a very short journey from Dubai to Oman for him. He's fresher than most of the field because, big journey to here for most of the field, but not for Adrianus. He's got a home in Dubai. He clearly has the game to win on the European Tour. He's just potentially another John Rahm in the making. Very early stages in his career. Very similar swing to John Rahm's. A strong temperament. He was 3rd in the Dubai Desert Classic a month ago. And he loves desert golf. He won the 2018 Challenge Tour Grand Final in the UAE. I expect Arnaus to improve. He was 45th last year as a European Tour rookie in the Oman Open. I think he improves and contends this time.
Okay, well, I've got 2 for you, so I'll give you some of my 2 now before we go back to Pete and then hear your final 2, Steve. I'll actually start with someone you've mentioned already, Clement Sordet, the Frenchman. He, absolutely, as you said here, had a 3-putt on the 72nd hole in last year's event to drop him just 1 back of a possible playoff. He's lost his European Tour card at the moment. He's fighting to get that back, but he did have a win here, as you said. The Challenge Tour hosts an event here as well, and he's won that once in the past, in 2017. So he knows that winning feeling, and of course did get a 2nd place, tied for 2nd here last year. So for me, someone like that, as much as he's not a full European exempt player, He's 67 to 1. Someone that's won on this golf course before is in half decent form. I sort of feel like he's worth a punt, especially if you can find somewhere that will pay out on a reasonable each way number of places. I think he's got to be can't be overlooked. And my second one, which is all I've got for the Oman Open, is my friend, and I can say my friend officially. Me and you played with him, Pete. We played with him in the British Masters Pro-Am at Close House.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin Kaymer. He was a fantastically nice guy to us that day. That's not the reason I'm tipping him, but he was very nice. Gave me a short game clinic after the round, just dropping his name in there. But he's someone
needed though. Crikey.
It was. Oh my God, that day there was chunks, there was thins.
It was more out of sympathy than kindness, I think.
I think he just saw it was needed.
We all pitched in. We all gave him 50 quid.
Well,
so just stay around for another 10 minutes, will you, please?
I'm not sure what Martin charges, but you might have need quite a few of you to chip in if that was the case. Martin is obviously someone who's prolific in the Middle East over the years. Not been prolific as of late, but he's trending in the right sort of direction. He's not been worse than a tie for 21st in all of his last 4 starts. He's 30th overall in the Race to Dubai. And I think the Race to Dubai European Tour rankings can be a little bit deceiving because you do have those co-sanctioned events, I should say, where a lot of the more predominantly PGA Tour players litter the top of that list if they've won a big event, like Adam Scott did, for example. I sort of feel that Martin Kaymer is at the top. Probably not fantastic value, if I'm honest, but I just really think that he's going to win again soon. Pete, you've got one more for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Minwoo Lee.
Okay.
So, very good player.
Music to your ears, Steve.
Like in obviously very good form as well. And he's just, for such a young guy, like the consistency that he's showing and the ability to kind of get onto the line and over the line now as well. You know, he's got to be up there. He's just such a consistent performer. And I think from his progress so far is almost a little bit under the radar. You know, he's not the first name on everyone's lip, but probably should be. He's getting there.
Well, he's someone that obviously, Steve, you're a huge fan of. I was interested to see when I saw his price that he is towards the top of the leaderboard or towards the top of the favourites list, and probably for good reason. He seems to have it all. We haven't seen him play in a really, really strong field yet in a really big event. But you know, what you've seen so far, what's not to like?
33 to 1 Minwoo Lee, I think, is a good price. He's my third selection for this. This is his first outing since he won the Vic Open in superb style. You know, 2 weekend 68s in really tough conditions. You know, I think he's got the temperament to match the ability, bundles of power. He's got the range of shots. He showed off in the wind last time out. We didn't know that about him, but he's an excellent wind player, it seems. He's finished 4th in the Saudi International, Seb. So yeah, that was a top class field last year. Finished 4th in that. So he's already shown a liking for desert golf. Missed the cut by a shot in this last year in the Oman Open. I'm not worried about that. He's 12 months of development. He's got a European Tour card now. It's a huge weight off his shoulders because, you know, he can play with even more freedom than before. So yeah, Minwoo Lee has to be in the staking plan this week. I think he's an absolute superstar in the making.
Minwoo Lee, someone very, very excited. Didn't realise he had that 4th place at the Saudi last year, so that definitely helps his case, I would say. I've seen how passionate you are about him, and I've seen how impressive he is recently this year, so very interested to see how he gets on. You got one more for us, Steve?
I got one more, much bigger price. The first Polish player to gain European Tour membership, Adrian Maronk. He won on the Challenge Tour last year, big hitter, full of promise. And last time out in the Saudi International, he carded 4 under par rounds. So that suggests he's settled on the European Tour now. And crucially, he's got some Al Mouj experience. He finished 11th in the 2017 Challenge Tour Grand Final there, so he can hit the ground running this week. He lost a Challenge Tour event in a playoff in the UAE that year as well. So he seems to enjoy desert golf. I think Adrian Maronk, 150 to 1, a very talented outsider who could give you a good run for your money.
Interesting. Okay, let's do a little recap now. Let's go back to the Honda. Let's start with you, Pete. Your picks for the Honda Classic.
So we go Tommy Fleetwood and Louis Oosthuizen.
And Steve?
Tommy Fleetwood and Gary Woodland.
I have my horse for the course, Billy Horschel, Ricky Fowler, and Mr. Wind player himself, Ryan Palmer. Your man after your own namesake there, Steve. And coming back onto you again for the Oman Open.
Oman Open, Thomas Pieters, Adrianus, Minwoo Lee and Adrian Maronk.
Peter?
Gavin Green and Minwoo Lee.
And I have Clement Sordet and Martin Kaymer. Right, well, we've heard everybody's roundup of all of their tips now. I'm going to give the guys a chance to put their name to just one of them across both tournaments now. We'll start with you, Pete. Who's your one pick across the 2 events this week?
I'm going to go Minwoo Lee, just because Steve's waxing lyrical about him. It's kind of got me a little bit more excited. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to go for Lee.
Minwoo Lee. Okay, Steve, how about you?
I'm going to go for the Thomas Pieters and Tommy Fleetwood each way double. I think the Toms are going to dominate this week. They're the Tominators. They're the Tominators. Hasta la vista, baby.
Oh my goodness. Someone needs to clip that out and just play that back at some point on social media. That was sensational. All right, my number one pick is going to be that guy, Billy Horschel. I think he's coming into form and he's got good record here as well. So yeah, Billy Horschel is my man this week. Okay, now it's time to get into some of your questions that have been coming in across social media. Pete, I'm going to start with you here. Okay. Got a little question for you. You get to play, as we've already talked about a little bit today, a lot of the golf courses on tour, all over the world, do a lot of travelling for your content. Adam Kench has asked, if you could pick one course you haven't played before to play in 2020, what would that be and why?
Royal St George's. Definitely, 100%. So I've been down there once before, played Prince's, which is next door. But as an open venue, as a very famous course, I've just not played it. I mean, part of it is just so far away from the northwest. You drive to London, think you're there, and then you've got to drive another 22 hours to actually get out there. But it should be worth the trip. And I think when people speak about open courses, it's one that's sneakily high up there as well. And from the pictures I've seen and from the course design and from the people who've played and won there in the past, it just looks amazing.
Well, I have played that one, but there's an asterisk next to it. I played it in the most horrific weather you can ever think of. I think I shot like 150,000. It was absolutely, I was sheltered for 20 minutes at one point under an umbrella, just laying there, just wanting to be at home in my bed. It was one of the worst golf conditions I've ever played in. So I'm desperate to go back and play there under maybe more fair conditions.
Great, you're selling it to me, can't wait.
Yeah, well,
can I change my answer, please?
We might get a chance to go down there, hopefully, maybe before the Open. It'd be great to check it out, wouldn't it? So let's move on now, talking about golf courses. Let's talk about golf swings. Now, I'm going to come to Steve here as well. Steve, who is your favourite? This comes in from Rory G03. Who's got the favourite? I'll ask that a bit better, shall I? It might help. Who's your favourite golf swing on tour? Who's got the best swing out there on either tour?
Min Woo Lee.
Min Woo Lee. Why even ask? Silly question. Min Woo Lee.
You got your classics, Adam Scott, Louis Hughes Townsend. Yeah, they got the textbook swings, but yeah, I like the sort of rhythm and free flowing ones. And in Min Woo Lee and Rory McIlroy, I'd say are probably my two favourites because they're not textbook, but just free flowing. That's how I like my golf to be played.
Pete, how about yourself? We also got a question that I won't ask you yet, but we've got a question in from Phil Martin who asked about your takeaway, which I know is something you get questioned about a lot.
Okay.
Your takeaway that comes out and to the side. You've got your own individual golf swing. Tell us a little bit about that, why you do that, and then tell us who your favourite swing is on tour.
The hover before a swing is not something technical. It's just something which I've grown up doing. I remember reading Sam Torrance's autobiography when I was a kid, oddly enough. But he talked about hovering the club before he hit, so he didn't get penalised if the ball moved. So it was just like a rules kind of thing. So I was like, I'll give it a go. Started doing it, quite like the feeling of it, and just done it ever since. So it's not it's just something I do automatically now. I don't even think about.
It's very distinguishable. Anyone that watches Pete's videos will see it. If you haven't, you need to check it out. Pete's obviously a very good golfer. It's all about golf, finding what works for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I get absolutely hammered for my golf swing in the comments on my YouTube videos. I blame mine on a bad back, but I've got a pretty erratic takeaway. But there we go. Well, thanks for those questions. We've got one last question. This is a big one, guys. I want to get your thoughts on this as well in the comments down below. There's a lot happening right now, a lot of noise about this potential new Premier Golf League, new World Tour, if you like. We're still learning a lot of information about it. We're still in the information gathering stage. What are your initial thoughts, Peter? It comes in from Sean O'Donovan, I should say. Sorry, Sean.
I mean, it's got to obviously get the support of the major players. We already know that Rory's kind of said he's not interested. And I think there's always a question mark against anything which is predominantly based on money. So you see it with the FedEx Cup. Like, no matter how much the PGA Tour pushes it, are people actually that bothered about it? No matter how much money that they're putting for the first prize, what are people bothered about? The majors. Why they bother about the majors? It's the history, it's the tradition. And that's what you grow up, if you're a golfer, that's what you want to win. You want to win the Open, you want to win the Masters, you want to play a hard track at the US Open and come through that. And yeah, it'd be amazing to win $3-4 million, whatever it'd be, if you win an event. But although that's going to buy you a few more houses, what kind of trophy do you want on your shelf? Do you want something of like a major? Do you want like an established event on there? Or do you want just a cash grab?
Yeah, I do hear what you're saying. I think it's going to be interesting. Well, one thing I always think about is that nothing stays the same forever. It feels like it might be a little early in this, but if you look, in the last 50 years of golf, the breakaway from the PGA of America to the PGA Tour itself, you look at things like the Premier League, the ATP, what they've talked about is doing something like a team constructors championship, similar to Formula One. Way they're going to shoot it differently. Every event is a shotgun start, so all the golfers are on the golf course at the same time. Those sort of things I can get behind, but you could do things like that in the PGA Tour. You don't need a new golf tour to do that. So what do you think, Steve? What are your thoughts on it?
I totally agree with Finchy. I'm fuming about the idea.
I think, fuming?
And I am fuming. I love the grand old game of golf, and I'm totally behind Rory McIlroy. When Rory came out and just immediately said, "No, count me out. I'm not interested. I want to be on the right side of history." He wants to win the majors. He doesn't care about money so much. It's all generated by money. It's all fueled by money, this idea. And the top players have got enough money already. The setup as it is fine. And it just sounds incredibly dull from what I'm hearing. The same players every week. Was it 3-round events? The team element just seems ridiculous because I heard that you pick the 2 highest ranked players to contribute to the your team captains pick the 2 players to contribute points that week. They're always going to pick their highest ranked players. From what I've seen of it, rubbish. And I don't expect to get off the ground. I mean, Tiger Woods was very diplomatic when he was talking about it. He was saying, I haven't decided, I've got to speak to my people and whatnot. But he'll have to play like more than he's ever played in a season for donkey's years if he's going to commit to it. And he won't. Rory said Tiger won't enter. So you take Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods out of it, you're not left with a very exciting product in my eyes. I'm dead against it. I don't think it'll get off the ground.
Well, hopefully next time we have some questions, Steve won't sit on the fence so much with that one. It's an interesting topic. I think it's going to rumble on. There are elements of it I'm very intrigued by, but equally there are a lot of concerns about what can happen.
It's always interesting to have something new.
Of course.
At the end of the day, it's got to spark interest, and it's got to be if it's a new product, then it's got to be a better product than what's currently there. And I don't see how the format as it's suggested is actually going to be more intriguing than the current offering. Might be wrong, and if it works and it gets off the ground, great. New golf, more golf, I'm all for it. But at this moment, not sure.
But that just about wraps us up here on The Sweet Spot. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your tips and insight as always, Steve. Thank you for coming down and being on the show, Pete. Very much appreciated. Remember to let us know your comments and thoughts on this week's events in the comments down below, and also what your thoughts are on the Premier League of Golf. Should be interesting to see. We will see you next week when Bruce will be back with us. As ever, gamble responsibly, and we will see you next time.